On March 29th, 2024, Cindy Lee released their critically acclaimed album Diamond Jubilee. It quickly gained traction amongst internet communities like Rate Your Music, Album of the Year, and of course the Needle Drop. Being a little bit ignorant and lazy, I kept refreshing Spotify under Cindy Lee's name, waiting for the album to eventually appear there. Many months later, we're in October, I realize I have to get my year-end list together soon, and this album was so critically acclaimed that I couldn't possibly skip it. And thank God I didn't. When I finally got around to listening to it, it made sense that you could only find it via YouTube and this dark web looking GeoCities website. Seriously, this is really what it looks like. After listening to the album multiple times, it made more and more sense why the band chose to only upload this in certain areas. I feel like if they broadcast it everywhere, it would really lose a lot of its charm. And that's what we're here to talk about today. If Diamond Jubilee were easily accessible on Spotify, Apple Music, etc., it just wouldn't be the same album. If you're unfamiliar with the record, I'll give you a brief rundown of what it sounds like. We'll get more in depth on certain songs later, but this is all you need to understand for now. The album cover showcases a woman looking pretty lonely, sitting in front of a very remote looking Alberta, Canada train station. She's smoking a cigarette, and the picture overall has a certain grain to it that makes it feel very old. Not only does it feel as old as the 1950s, it also carries a certain loneliness as well. You can see it in the expression of the woman's face, who looks very down, but also the town just looks very remote. It seems like she's thinking about what else is out there and reminiscing on what could be. I know I was going to tell you what the record sounds like, but as this is a video about album aesthetics, we gotta spend some time on the cover. I think that former point alone is enough to argue that your album art truly matters. Does your cover sound like the music you're putting on the album? In my opinion, if it doesn't, it kinda takes away from the overall experience. Diamond Jubilee does this flawlessly, taunting vocals that sound like long gone distant memories, lyrics about nostalgia, heartbreak, loss, kind of just life of this person stuck in a small lonely town, yearning for something more. On top of that, each track has this beautiful lo-fi production, giving it that old school charm that sounds like something you'd hear on Fallout radio. I made a community post the other day talking about how this album feels like a piece of mysterious lost media, further adding to the lonely aesthetic it did such a good job of portraying. This is why only having it available on YouTube and GeoCities just adds to its charm. Another thing that benefits Diamond Jubilee that would harm other albums is its over 2-hour runtime. You're getting into triple album territory there, and that's almost never a good thing. However, given that this album feels like a 50s or 60s radio station, it really doesn't impact this record in a negative light at all. After listening to this album about 3 times, I took to Rate Your Music to read some reviews. At this point, I personally loved it, but I was still curious as to what people thought given how critically acclaimed this was. Not only is it rated number 6 of the year on Rate Your Music, it's also Pitchfork's 3rd best record of the entire 2020s so far. Given I was pretty unfamiliar with how it sounded before I listened, I was curious what others had to say. Now, many people on Rate Your Music are way overly critical in my opinion. There are a lot of people on there, it seems, who just want to have a different opinion than the overall crowd, but really a lot of reviews from that site inspired this video. User Goddamn the Sun had a really good interpretation of the record, even if I slightly disagree with it, but here's a snippet of what they said. With the advent of indie labels in the 80s, production has become increasingly a creative option open to be defined by the artist. Nowadays, in the age of free online file sharing, the possibilities are limitless. I bring this up because in the critical acclaim surrounding Diamond Jubilee, I see something wholly new, something that couldn't have existed in the days this album's poppy sound harkens back to. The enthusiasm over this album isn't a response to its tired shuffles, driving bass lines, or cute, messy guitar lines, but a reflection of its, for lack of a better word, packaging. Warm, slightly bit-crushed lo-fi filters, smooth lapses between cheery psych pop and slow romanticism, and the mythos of a 2-hour odyssey released only on YouTube and a heavily aestheticized GeoCities page make the difference between an unmemorable, overlong slog and a life-changing masterwork, and it's a testament to the project's contributors that so many critics and fans alike have filed it in the latter category. So now we're getting into the meat of why your album presentation matters so much. Do I think the music on this record would be bad if it wasn't packaged in this lonely, nostalgic fashion? Absolutely not. But I do agree with Goddamn the Sun's point that if it wasn't packaged this way, it would probably just be viewed as a solid lo-fi pop record with a little bit of bloat. 2 hours is a very long runtime, and I don't think you're crossing that finish line without some underlying factors. Diamond Jubilee is an amazing album to listen to while road tripping or working. Really, it's the perfect thing to have on in the background, but if you're looking for some deeper meaning, trying to interpret everything that's going on, it might leave you a bit unimpressed. I do feel like if this record came out in the 60s along with its contemporaries, it probably wouldn't be the juggernaut it is today. That said, there are multiple instances on Diamond Jubilee where you'll find production you couldn't possibly find in the 50s or 60s. There are multiple songs that are strictly instrumental, one of the most prominent being Gabe LaVision at the beginning of disc 2. It hits you with these thick, bustling bass lines and snares that make you feel like you're on a moving train about to go off the rails. Closing track 24/7 Heaven is another fully instrumental moment that does a nice job tying the album up, although it does feel more like an epilogue than an album closer. Going back to the packaging and lost media feel of the record, it reminds me a lot of something like Death Metal by Pachinko. If you're unfamiliar with that album, I did a video on it a very long time ago, but I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. A bit of the information I provide is inaccurate, as more details about the project have come up since, but you can check out the comments of it to get a more accurate picture. Basically, the album was treated as a piece of mysterious media for a while. In 2016, an anonymous 4chan user who bought the CD in the UK uploaded the album art asking people if they recognized it. They got no answer for a while, and when they took the record home, it was anything but death metal. Instead, it was a lo-fi rock record with elements of dream pop and shoegaze. The only details they were left with were the names of 4 band members on the back. For years, this album remained on the internet with no trace of who actually made it. There were theories from Reddit that the 4chan user probably made the record themselves. Other people thought the album was some kind of weird reference to Death Grips, but in the end, 4 years later, the internet found the lead singer via Facebook, and he was just as shocked as they were. Pachinko ended up being his old high school band that since disbanded, but they had sent their CDs out to a few record companies. Many people who heard the record talked about the heavy use of distortion used within it, but it turns out that it was just disc rot from the age of the CDs. The band ended up getting back together after this and making more music, but they'll always be infamous for the huge internet mystery Pachinko ended up becoming. The reason I bring this up when it comes to Cindy Lee is because I feel like Diamond Jubilee very much resembles many of the traits of this album. They each have an animated character on the cover. Both are lo-fi projects, and each carries with them a bit of mystery, even though one was far more unintentional in that regard. Death metal was absolutely huge when it became a mystery, and that's the case for a lot of lost media. Sometimes I wonder if there would be this big cult following surrounding Pachinko if it hadn't been for the mystery. Don't get me wrong, I really like the music on this album. It's a really consistent and enjoyable record from front to back, but if the album cover was just a blue square or something, would it have gotten this popular? My money is on no. To me, this goes to show just how important an album aesthetic is. Pachinko doesn't put that anime character on the front of their cover and name their album something cool like death metal. I'm willing to bet that 4chan user in the CD shop flips right past it. No internet mystery. We never get a great reunion with an awesome band, they're out of luck. Back to Diamond Jubilee though, even the tracks that do contain vocals are usually guided more from the watery lo-fi production than what's actually being sung. That's what makes this album very easy to put on in the background, and the aesthetic these instrumentals provide is very comforting and easy to digest. That's pretty much all I have to say about Diamond Jubilee and how it masterfully created this old school lonely aesthetic. But there's an even more popular album that came out in 2024 that created a unique aesthetic in its own completely different way. Brat by Charlie XCX was genius level marketing. We've seen the green square and Arial font everywhere in pop culture, including the vice president's campaign. And no matter where you go on the internet, you can't seem to get away from a Brat reference. This title and rollout worked so well not only because it's Charlie kind of giving the middle finger to the industry and saying she's gonna do things her way, but because it makes the content of the album all the more intriguing too. On first listen, you may get the impression that this person is a real biatch, but as you listen deeper, you realize this is someone that has a lot of insecurities because of the lifestyle she has to live, and the whole brat aesthetic is a cover-up for that. We see this on songs like I Might Do Something Stupid, Rewind, and Sympathy is a Knife. Not only is the neon green square calling out the industry, it's also kind of a call for help on Charlie's end. It's a cover-up for something that seems very egotistical, when in reality it's just a human being trapped in the confines of fame. I could go much deeper into the lore of Brat, but given this was supposed to just be a Cindy Lee video, we're gonna chop it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments your favorite albums and aesthetics that have come out recently, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.